Do you want crazy aim like this? Well, you are going to need to follow these 12 aiming tips and tricks in Apex Legends. All of these will work on both mouse and keyboard and controller, and they will take your aim to the next level. Shout out to Traced for the clips in this intro. You can find his links in the description below. Tip 1. Warm up in the firing range before playing. Take around 5 to 10 minutes before hopping in a match and get comfortable with the feel of the game. What I personally do is grab a submachine gun, whichever one you want. I usually switch it up each time. Then I stack it up with the best attachments possible to reduce the time I spend reloading. I open up the firing range setting, turn on infinite weapon reload, turn off stay still, turn on strafe left and right, set the dummy's strafe speed to either random or running, set their shield level to mythic, and turn on random intervals. Once I got that all sorted out, I try to just keep on one clipping the dummies while incorporating some of the same type of movement that I would be using consistently in game. Tip 2. Find a good aim down sight to hip fire ratio. Of course, the majority of the time your accuracy will be superior when you are aiming down sight. However, this does not mean you should neglect hip firing your weapon. Having good aim is important, but that is only half the battle. You need to make yourself as difficult as possible to hit so the enemy doesn't take you down with ease. When you hip fire, your movement speed increases, making you much more difficult to hit. When you cycle between aiming down sights and hip firing in a match, your movement speed is constantly changing, which makes it very difficult for enemies to track you. There's also a bit of an exploit you can take advantage of in Apex Legends to have perfect accuracy while hip firing. To abuse this trick, all you need to do is start by firing your weapon while ADS, then un-ADS, and your first 5 to 7 bullets, depending on the weapon, will be perfectly straight. After those 5 or so shots, go back to aiming down sights and keep on repeating this cycle. Tip 3. Focus on crosshair placement. If you play other competitive shooters that require high levels of aim, such as CSGO, Valorant, or Rainbow Six Siege, you're probably very familiar with the term crosshair placement. Put simply, good crosshair placement is keeping your crosshair or reticle positioned where an enemy is likely to pop out. Take this Valorant clip for example. If you look at my crosshair, I am always trying to keep it in a position where I believe an enemy may walk into it. Doing this means that I never have to make large adjustments in my aim to hit an enemy, as they will always be right in my crosshairs if my crosshair placement is optimal. Now, this same concept can be taken into Apex to improve your aim. Players often have extremely bad crosshair placement in Apex Legends because they're constantly staring at the ground where all the loot is. Now, of course, you need to loot. However, when you aren't looting, focus on keeping your crosshair where enemies may pop out, as I don't think they will be emerging out of the ground. Tip 4. Stick with the same few guns all of the time. Of course, it is important to have a general feel for each weapon, as you never know when you may need to use it in a game, but I highly recommend sticking with your favorite guns almost all of the time. If you check out your favorite pro player, you will quickly notice that they will almost always run the same 1 or 2 weapon combos. That is what makes them so good with those weapons, even if they're only mediocre with the other guns. I always get asked what weapons players should use, and while there are weapons that are certainly really good compared to others, that doesn't matter if you aren't good with them yourself. The best R301 player in the world could probably dominate with that weapon every match. Now, if a different weapon took over the meta, such as the wingman, while the R301 player would probably still be good with the wingman, they would be better off sticking with the weapon they are exceptional with. Tip 5. Wait for easy opportunities to one-shot or get 1 clips. You do not want to immediately start firing your weapon whenever an enemy shows up on your screen. You want to ensure you have your shots lined up so you aren't stuck reloading in front of them. The more you play the game, the more you will notice scenarios where you should hold off on shooting for a second to wait for the enemy to be an easier target. One prime example of this is when an enemy is flying onto you and about to land near you. Instead of shooting at them in the sky where you are likely to miss most of your bullets, wait until they land on the ground and receive the stun impact so you can easily one-clip them. This same concept will pop up in a variety of situations, such as Pathfinder grappling, an Octane jump padding, Horizon going up for a gravity lift, or waiting for an enemy to stand still to line up a Kraber headshot. There are many other situations that will arise where waiting before you shoot is optimal. You will start to pick up on them the more you play, and you will certainly excel your improvement if you follow the next tip. Tip 6. Watch back your own gameplay. This is probably the best tip I could give you because it will directly benefit you no matter what your weakness in aiming is. A lot about aiming isn't just pure muscle memory, which is why you see pro players switching from controller to mouse and keyboard or mouse and keyboard to controller and still performing extremely well. If you want to truly see where your weakness is, you need to be watching back your own gameplay with a keen eye on your aiming habit. Maybe you're shooting too early and missing easy opportunities, or maybe your crosshair is always pointed towards the ground, so you need to make large adjustments in your aim to hit the enemy. Or maybe you simply have poor recoil control, in which case you need to take advantage of the next tip in this video. Tip 7. Recoil smoothing. If you don't already know what recoil smoothing is, don't worry, I got you covered. It is a unique trick that abuses a mechanic in Apex Legends to take away vertical recoil. Normally in Apex, when you fire a weapon, the recoil will kick up, causing you to miss your target. Now, if you move your reticle horizontally horizontally, it will almost completely eliminate the vertical recoil. Now that is great and all, but you don't really aim like that in game. What you want to do to get the most out of recoil smoothing in Apex Legends is to walk in one direction while you're pulling your aim in the opposite direction. So if I'm walking to my right, I should be pulling my aim to the left. Then if I'm walking to the left, I should be pulling my aim to the right. I get a ton of questions on how I control my recoil or accusations saying I use some sort of anti-recoil cheat, and that is all because of recoil smoothing and a little bit of practice learning the different recoil patterns. Now the next tip will help you even if your recoil control isn't very great. Tip 8. Aim for the upper chest where all of the legends are the widest, except for Loba. If you're aiming around the chest region, not only will it be easier to hit your shots as it is a wider region than the rest of the body, you will also receive headshot damage whenever your aim kicks up a little. Now if you're using a single fire weapon like a sniper rifle or a marksman rifle, I would still recommend aiming for the head because they have a large headshot multiplier. But for all of the automatic weapons, burst weapons, and shotguns, I would stick to aiming around the upper chest for the majority of the time. Tip 9. Use a slowish sensitivity. Running a lower sensitivity, whether you're on mouse and keyboard or controller, will almost always improve your aim. Almost all of the top pro players use low sensitivities for that crispy aim. Now the real reason why a lot of content creators use an unnecessarily high sensitivity is because it makes them look like they're doing more than they actually are. You will have better movement with a high sense than a low sense, but at the end of the day, hitting your shots is a lot more important than any movement trick you could ever pull off. If you want precise aim, definitely lower your sensitivity and follow the next tip on this list. Tip 10. Figure out your go-to optics for each weapon. Every optic has a slightly different feel, and the various zoom levels also change your sensitivity slightly. So bouncing between optics will make your weapons feel really awkward and inconsistent. I recommend hopping in the firing range and trying out the different optics for each weapon, as some will naturally feel better than others. For example, on the Nemesis AR, I absolutely love the 2 to 4x optic, but when I'm using an R301 or a flatline, I would much rather use a 2x bruiser. I also wouldn't recommend using the same optic across the board, as different weapons have different recoil patterns and fire rate, which will affect how it feels with the optic. For example, the 1x hollow may feel really good on the car or the R99, but put it on the wingman and it just doesn't feel right. No matter what optic you choose, you need to follow tip 11. Take your time and don't rush your shot. I find myself victim to this mistake, and I know a lot of other players also do. Once I started focusing on slowing down and focusing on my aim, my accuracy started to improve quickly, especially with weapons like the Peacekeeper, Wingman, and Kraber, where each shot can easily make or break a 1v1. To get a feel for this, you need to follow tip 12, which is take more gunfight. Following all of the tips I already mentioned will benefit you greatly, but you can only improve so much without taking more gunfights. This means that if you play Battle Royale, you need to be taking battles more often, as sitting around looting all game will not benefit your aim. If you want to excel your progress, hop into a deathmatch or control game and take every single fight possible to gain more experience and fine-tune your mechanics. If you want to really be as effective as possible in improving your aim, take a friend into the firing range and 1v1 each other as long as you would like, and you will excel really quickly. This will allow you to have very little downtime in aiming, so you can really get the most out of your time. Now, aiming is extremely important. However, there is a lot more to the game than just aim, so you should click on the video on the left of 100 Apex Legends tips and tricks. And if you already watched it, YouTube thinks you would enjoy this video up on the right.